You may be seated. One of my most beloved teachers, Dr. Zohar Raviv, devoted much of his life to strengthening Jewish education in communities across the globe. To learn from Zohar is pretty unforgettable. He brings wisdom alive with animation, depth, body language, and he has a way of making you see layers in a text you thought you already knew. When he would visit synagogues, clergy and lay leaders were very eager to show the very best of their communities, their innovative education programs, their magnificent sanctuaries, their impressive libraries. And Zohar would listen attentively and walk through their spaces with admiration and affirm all that they had built. And then he would ask a surprising question. Where is your congregational Talmud? A Talmud, for those of you who forgot, is a series of 63 books that are written by our rabbis to help us understand how to interpret Torah. And to put it in context, the rituals that we follow today, many of them actually come from Talmud. It's even the reason we're gathered here today to pray. Talmud tells us to do that. So, of course, the leaders of the community would proudly point to the rabbi's office or the library shelves where volumes of Talmud are housed. But Zohar would gently press further. No, I'm not asking about those Talmuds. I mean the Talmud of your congregation. Where is the record of your stories, your rituals, your unique teachings? Where is the living document that preserves the wisdom of the community that you created? And that question has never left me. Zohar was right. Immersing ourselves in our ancient texts roots us in our history, and it equips us to wrestle with complexities of our world and gives our lives purpose and meaning. And it draws us into our history to better understand our present. But if we stop there, if we only study what was handed down, something really essential is missing. What good is it to do all this learning if we do not create our own commentary, our own lived understanding of Judaism to be carried forward into the next generation? I spend a lot of time thinking about this question. I really love thinking about the Jewish people. Our history, our present, and our future. My gears are always turning. If you go to a restaurant with me, I'm constantly writing on napkins. And I'm thinking about what our people need. And I'm always asking myself, how can we most meaningfully have a resilient and joyful community that blossoms, feels engaged, and is inspired? And as good as my ideas are, and some are a little bit better than others, it's really not up to me. I can lead, I can guide, I can advise, help, support, but the community isn't mine. It's all of ours. You get to dictate, to build, to shape, to create, and to sustain. Every member that walks through our door has to fill out a membership form. And very often, new members will ask, what does this community provide for my membership? A legitimate question. And we answer them with all the wonderful things that we offer, which really are many. But if it were up to me, I would change the form to say, what are you bringing to this community? And that question isn't new. It's as old as Torah itself in the ritual of bringing our first fruits. The Torah teaches in Deuteronomy 26 that when the Israelites entered the land of Israel, each person was commanded to bring the very first fruit of their harvest to the temple in Jerusalem. And you shall take of the first fruit of the ground and set it down before God. This ritual, called bikurim, was not about one farmer supplying the nation. It was about every individual offering their best, creating a collective harvest of gratitude and holiness. In the same way, a strong and vibrant Jewish community cannot be sustained by the rabbis or the cantors or our lay leaders. It thrives when each one of us brings forward our first fruits, our unique talents, our resources, our time, our spirit, our ideas. Just as the temple was filled with the bounty of so many, so too our synagogue becomes whole only when every member contributes their very best. So what is a community? It is much more than a collection of names on a membership form. A community is a covenant. It is a promise that we make to one another that no one gets left alone. And throughout our history, Jewish communities have not only gathered in moments of sorrow, like maybe we have learned in some of our Hebrew school classes growing up, but they have mostly come together in times of joy, of strength, and of confidence and possibility. Take, for example, the biblical mitzvah of Hakhel. In ancient Israel, every 7 years during Sukkot, right after the sabbatical year, the entire nation, women, men, children, would all come to Jerusalem from afar for a huge festival. Can you imagine that? Tens of thousands of people gathered together at the Holy Temple, and the king himself would stand before all of the people in front of that whole community and read aloud from the Torah, renewing that covenant. It was a celebration of unity, of shared memory and hope, and it was rooted not in crisis, but in merriment, in affirmation. Our people knew that joy itself had to be the foundation of our resilience. Today, there is no single kingdom of Israel, and Jews really live all over the globe. We are comprised of many kingdoms, what we now call communities. This means that we have endless opportunities to create Hakhel for our day, imagining new ways to bring ourselves together for joy anchored in our tradition. This is the ultimate exercise in creativity and feeling a sense of togetherness in a world that sometimes feels very big and very loud. And our story did not pause in Jerusalem. It reverberated across centuries, echoing wherever Jews gathered in freedom, creating cultures of brilliance and joy. In Andalusia, during the golden age of Spain, Jews did not gather in fear, but in flourishing. They built schools and libraries and academies. They cultivated poets and philosophers, voices like Yehuda Halevi, the great poet who longs for Tzion, Solomon ibn Gvirol, the mystical philosopher who sang of the soul's yearning for God, and Maimonides, the towering legal and philosophical mind who wrote The Guide to the Perplexed, still shapes Jewish thought today. And if you don't know who any of these people are, that's okay. Go home, look them up. It will be a fabulous and sweet Rosh HaShanah gift to you and your family, I promise. This was not survival in the shadows. It was the fullness of Jewish life expressed in art, in wisdom, and in song. From Hakhel to Spain, we learn that when Jews are strong, we come together not only to endure or to survive, but to create. And that same impulse carried across the ocean. American Jews of the 19th and 20th centuries built with such ambition and vision that their creations, the synagogues and the community institutions, remain the very foundations of our Jewish life now. It's why we're sitting here today with a Jewish community center in our backyard, the Maltz Museum, Mandel Jewish Day School, Jewish Federation. I could go on, but you know the lay of the land. These institutions of brick and stone are important for our ritual life. They do give us the spaces and institutional support to have our celebration and ritual life. And perhaps no other holiday embodies that joy and continuity more vividly than when we gather for Simchat Torah. Every year, when we roll back, and we roll back to the very beginning of our Torah, and we gather in celebration, ready to experience Torah's stories and teachings afresh. Here at Mishkan Or, this ritual takes on a special beauty. When we unroll the entire Torah, it stretches around the entire sanctuary like a big embrace around our community. And because it is actually physically so long, everyone must take hold of it, each person supporting a piece, just as every member supports the whole. It really is a remarkable sight. That single ritual carries us back to Sinai and forward to generations yet unborn, binding us at the center of the story. It is not only a celebration of words on parchment, it is a living demonstration of what it means to be a community, and no one can hold it alone. But together we uphold Torah, and together we carry its joy. And the same is true in Israel today. In its earliest years, waves of Jews arrived not only out of displacement, but also with a bold vision to rebuild a shared home after 2,000 years of exile. They returned speaking different languages shaped by different histories, carrying with them melodies, rituals, stories, and tastes that were centuries old. And instead of letting those fragments remain separate, they wove them together into something entirely new. Israeli food culture is actually one of the clearest examples of storytelling. Food is not just merely sustenance, it's an act of identity. Yemenite spices, Moroccan stew, Iraqi kube, Ashkenazi kugel, Ethiopian injera, all became strands in a single fabric, a declaration of Israel's diverse Jewish life and also of other faiths. Every Shabbat table became a miniature covenant, a reminder that the people are stitched together from difference and made whole through the effort of creation. And that same spirit has carried forward into our own day. On Simchat Torah itself, on October 7th, 2023, when Israel was plunged into grief and uncertainty, one of the most unexpected sources of resilience was communal music. Musicians gathered in shelters of safety, on hospital balconies and in public squares, raising their voice so that fear could not silence song. They came together for kumzitzim, which are late-night circles of singing and prayer, and transformed anger and sadness into defiance, and defiance into hope. Even under the immense stress of this time, Israelis have continued to celebrate weddings, to mark b'nai mitzvahs, to plant trees, and to gather around in shared meals. Not to deny pain, but to defy it. To testify that communal life of joy remain the ultimate acts of resilience. And what do these moments teach us is this: resilience is not only about enduring hardship. It is about choosing again and again to weave joy into communal life. Bonds of celebration are just as vital as bonds of comfort, because it is the joy we cultivate together that sustains us when the world feels heavy. If Israelis can cling to this truth in difficult times, then surely we can embrace it with purpose by showing up, by rejoicing in one another's milestones, and by building a community strong enough to carry us all. So here we are on Rosh HaShanah, gathering for a holy day that could easily feel solitary. Each of us carries our own regrets, our confessions, and our private hopes. But Judaism has insisted that we do this together. We stand here as a people side by side because our tradition maintains that spiritual life is never, ever solitary. Covenant is lived together. And if thousands of years of Jewish survival isn't proof enough for you, well, modern research affirms what Torah already knew, that people thrive in community. When we gather in our synagogue, we discover meaning and purpose that we don't get to do anywhere else. That purpose can carry us through the hardest times. We cultivate hope and optimism when the world feels heavy. The question for us in this new year is, how will we live it out? What does it look like to practice radical community here together? Maybe it means keeping our building open for more than just services, so people can just gather over coffee, or work remotely from a shared space, or have lunch in community instead of eating alone. Does anyone else eat alone at their desk? Muting the phone between bites? Just me? Okay. Maybe it means we create a sports team for our kids, or support groups for parents who are exhausted. Is anyone exhausted? Or maybe even a temple date night for couples so they can feel renewed. What if every congregant joins us at services for their birthdays so they can have a special blessing? Or better yet, add a special blessing for your special birthday dinner. Our sisterhood, our ladies, they do such incredible mitzvot and they do all kinds of projects that help children in hospitals. What if our B'nai Mitzvah kids were their helpers, working in partnership, not only to promote Ledor Vador from generation to generation, but also to work together on these incredible projects? Make a Jewish yoga class to unwind, a food tasting from Jews around the world, a Jewish karaoke night. Or what about making space for dialogue? Learning in a safe place how to have a difficult conversation with those who think differently from us. Or teaching our kids how to use words thoughtfully so they can express themselves in moments of goodness or in moments of challenge. The greatest charge for our generation is to ensure that our children graduate high school with a clear, anchored, deep sense of Jewish identity. And I don't just mean our biological children. I mean the children of this community. Do we have any kids here who are under 18 years old? Why don't you guys stand up? Stand up. I want you guys to take a look around the room. Do you see all these grown-ups here? You need to hold us to such a high standard. We need to set you up. We need to teach you the ways of the world. We need to make you feel confident. And if we fall short even a little bit, you are allowed to call anybody out in this room. Rabbi's orders. Have a seat, kiddos. Thank you for being here. That's our future. This is what we're doing this for. We're all responsible for them, all of us. And if they don't have clarity and confidence, others will be very quick to define our children for them. We don't want that. I so often hear parents say that their Hebrew school was less than ideal. So what are we all doing to make sure that our kids don't feel the same way? How are we educating them at home? What ideas are we sharing with them so when they do come here, they share it with their friends and their colleagues? Being here is not just an activity. It is our raison d'être. It is our reason for being. It is the lens by which we live our lives. It is how we make our choices. And with today's climate of isolation, division, and difficulty, we all face a choice. Do we shape our community identity based on passivity? Or do we embrace an active Jewish life together? We're living in bewildering times. Our culture promises everything and yet leaves us very often with nothing. We can summon groceries, clothes, or gadgets to our doorsteps within hours, with 45 varieties of every imaginable product at our fingertips. And yet, abundance of stuff does not give us purpose. It does not weave us together. In fact, it isolates us. I can work, shop, scroll, and connect with the entire world from a small glow of a screen. But that is not what we are created for. We were meant to see each other's faces light up in laughter, to hold each other when tears fall, to share meals across a table, to sing together until our voices merge, to bless one another at life's thresholds. Our tradition puts it simply, lo tov heyot ha'adam levado. It is not good for any person to be alone. From the very beginning, Adam and Eve are created together because Torah insists that human flourishing depends on relationship, on presence, on community. The Talmud of our sages rests safely in our libraries and in our clergy offices, and we do access them whenever we need. But how many of us are going to help compose the congregational Talmud? Our Talmud does not live on a shelf. Every simcha, every meal, every class, every tear, every song becomes a page in the living Talmud. It is a book only we can write together, and its wisdom will be the inheritance of all of those who come after us. I wish us all a year of genuine sweetness, of health, and of joy, and of writing